One, two, three, the lawn feed.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Lawn Feed Podcast. I am Chris from It's Mow Time, and as always, I guess not as always, I'm only with one other person today, being Andrew from the Dad Bod Lawn. How you doing, man?
Good. You got the better of the two. You caught a break tonight.
That's true. Vince is being the better husband and father tonight, and he is hanging out with his family. So you get to hang out with us today. So thank you for tuning in to another great episode of our show on the Lawn Feed Podcast, where we're going to talk about kind of winding it down. We're going to talk about as you mentioned, tucking it in and getting ready for winter and winterizing our lawns and our houses for that matter, and what that means for us DIY people. But first, check out all we have to offer on our website at thelawnfeed.com. That is inclusive of podcast info, additional episodes, learn more about us as your hosts, fresh merch, and much, much more. On behalf of all of the Lawn Feed, we want to thank our friends at Twin City Seed for powering this episode of the Lawn Feed podcast. Celebrating their 30th anniversary, Twin City Seed offers elite and custom blends of grass seed to homeowners, turf professionals, and many more. This is home to the new Resilience 2, Blue Resilience, and Fielder's Choice blends, of which we all have in our yards. They ship to all 50 states. Check them out at twincityseed.com and check out the banner on their website for any current specials and offers, along with any codes for free shipping for your next seeding project. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of this thing, we need to carry on the tradition of talking about us as dads and parents and getting into some wins and losses, which I know we've got a whole ton of. So Andrew, enough of me talking. I'm sure you got some wins on your side.
Yeah. Actually, just last week, you guys may have known that the three of us met up down in Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville.
For the Equip Expo, formerly known as GIE. And so those 3 nights spent down there, that went way too fast. But I think it was like night 1 that I was down there. I get a text from my wife asking me how to use certain attachments on my brand new razor. I just bought a new razor that's like, I shave my head because I don't have any hair really. So I like shave my own head, but it also does my face. And it's like an all-in-one kind of thing. And I've used it once. I know nothing about this thing. It's got a ton of attachments. And then my wife says, "Hey, I want to cut our son's hair. Like, I need help." And I'm like, "I don't know what to tell you. You got to figure it out because I don't know. I'm busy. I don't know what to tell you." So she sends me a picture a little while later, or a video. I can't remember what it was. And she's like, "What do you think?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's comical because that is not good." It was like a bowl cut, but like worse. I'm like, "You gotta like fade in the short hair with the long hair." And she was like, "How do I do that?" I'm like, "You need to get a comb." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you do not know." Well, fast forward, I get home a few days later and his hair looks magnificent. Turns out the next day she brought him into an actual haircut place and got him a legit haircut. And he looks so grown up. I mean, he just kind of had like the overgrown, little boy's hair, which was adorable. But now he's kind of just got like the, nice professional haircut. And he's just like standing in the living room watching TV, just like, because kids don't always sit when they watch TV, right? They got to just stand and stare at the TV. And
way too close to it, too.
Way too close, right? Our TV's above the fireplace and his neck is like straight up in the air. And I'm just looking at him and I'm like, he looks like he's like 6 over there. And it's all the haircut.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. And I mean, some of the stuff he says, it just makes me think, wow, where is the time gone? He says things that well as all kids do growing up. And it was one of those moments. So I was like, wow, okay. He's grown up way too fast. But I guess I consider that a win in my book, just because I love watching my kids grow up and change for the better and kind of take on their own personalities and stuff like that. So it's been really neat. And I really don't have much for losses. My kids have been better than average, I guess you would say, as of recently. So I think you might have a loss that you'd like to share. So let's send it back to you.
I can certainly step in with that loss.
Thank you.
It's been a roller coaster, with our youngest, and it's like you got to win with your youngest, and our youngest is, and he's gonna listen to this in like 16 years, and like, well, maybe, hopefully, we still exist in 16 years, and just like, what was I thinking? Why did I do that? Bedtime is a new thing.
Okay.
Bedtime is a process. So back, like, just to give a highlight, or I guess a little overview, our youngest is like 4.5, just about to turn 5 next month, and just moved up like into a new classroom like a couple months ago, like this and that thing. So they're learning all of these new things, and there's a couple new kids, that transition, with all of the different changes in classrooms from other places and things like that. So when all the shifting happens, so like new people come in from other centers and all of that stuff, and someone uses a naughty word, and that naughty word happens to start with F and rhyme with suck.
Oh boy.
And that's going around like wildfire, to keep this PG rated without the explicit category. I think you can all reverse engineer what we're talking about. So I get a lot of "I hate you, Dad," with that word
Yeah.
thrown in there at bedtime. Bedtime is like Dad goes in, puts our kid to bed, and uh, automatically whoever puts him to bed just wants the other person, whether it's mom. It's just the
Yep.
opposite,
Yep.
and it's just a process. And I know I'm not the only one, but like, my
Oh
gosh,
no.
is it like you just feel like the worst parent of all time, because like you get into the garage sometimes and the garage is open, neighbors are walking by, and all of a sudden like a flare up happens, and like, what did you just say? Like, I promise we're good parents. I swear
Yeah.
to God. But it's like your worst parenting moments happen like in
Yeah.
the driveway and stuff like that. You just feel like you're on a spotlight. But
But most people, I think, have either raised kids or they just fully understand, and it's just
I
comical for them
know,
because they've been through it. They understand it. They know you're not a bad parent, or maybe they don't know, but they just assume that this is a one and done. But
man, is it just like, God, you just start blushing. It's like, I promise we're good parents. We try to do the right things. We're not all perfect,
right,
but my gosh.
yeah,
But man, kids will be kids. Kids will be kids. There's good and there's bad. The good heavily outweigh the bad, as always. So hopefully that's relatable, and people are in the car listening or winterizing their lawn and saying like, "Oh my gosh, they're going through the same thing we are," and stuff like that.
parenthood.
So parenthood, man, it's a fun time. It's a fun time. We got to winterize all of our properties. So let's dive into that. What does that mean for us homeowners, Andrew?
Well, usually it means you're pretty sad because the season's coming to an end.
Yeah,
Once you start this process that we're about to talk about, it's kind of like the depressing state of thinking winter is coming, as they say in Game of Thrones, right? And for guys like you and me up in Michigan and Minnesota, that's 4 to 6 months of just freezing your tail off and not being able to take care of a lawn, which is sometimes welcome to an extent, right? Because it's been a long season and we're ready for a break. But I think a 1 month break would be more than enough, in my personal opinion. But
yep.
this time of year, usually for me, up in the Michigan, which is the northern part of the United States, a lot of people down south, obviously things happen, in phases, right? Depending on what zone you're in. But Chris and I were getting into the consistent 40s. You're probably even getting colder than that. I know you got some maybe snow on the forecast, but
Yeah.
the leaves are falling, or hopefully they are, because for me personally, my leaves around me don't like to fall until the snow's on the ground. Uh, but the reason why I'm talking about leaves are it's good to get those off the ground, right? You don't want to have a lot of leaves under your snow all winter long. It's gonna kind of suffocate out the turf in those areas. Um, when it comes to cleaning up the leaves, there's many methods to go about this, whether it's raking, using a blower, or sucking them up with your bagger if it's thick. Or we also highly encourage mulching those leaves back into the lawn to
Hmm.
get those nutrients. So for me personally, this year it's been enjoyable because I have the 42-inch zero turn for the first fall, and it is just so easy to go over that lawn 2 or 3 times with ease without even like thinking about it. Right, it just adds a few minutes, so that has been enjoyable for me. And along the lines of using that mower, we want to drop our height of cut down.
Hmm.
I like to keep my lawn consistently around 3.5 inches during the thick of the summer. and I slowly drop that down a couple notches going into winter. So my goal is to get it down to about 2.5 inches. And the idea here is to reduce the amount of the grass blades laid down. Something that we're going to touch on here in a little bit is snow mold. It happens in the
Wah,
winter
wah.
with the snow, wah wah, and yeah, we've all been hit by it, and we'll kind of talk about how to take care of that and prevent that in a little bit. But it just really helps the grass blades as soon as the snow it comes off of them in the spring, just kind of stand back up. Probably hit it with light raking or something to get airflow back down in there. But if you have long grass blades laying over, that's just going to make things that much harder and kind of just really reduce the airflow that's getting down into those roots. So do yourself a favor, lower the decks down a little bit, and it's also going to help with leaves blowing around your lawn. It'll blow easier if you're using the leaf blower and stuff like that. Shorter is better for all that. Now let's send it back to you for something that actually I just did literally today. I swear, last time we talked about this topic a year ago, I did it on the same day too. So let's just,
Really?
yeah, no joke. So what am I talking about? What am I
Oh,
talking about, Chris?
wow. You're talking about blowing out your irrigation, if I had to guess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, Something that I have witnessed people forget about, and that's a huge issue, or just not do. Like one of the two. Like it's either they just like neglect it and they're dealt with the whirlwind problems, or it's too late. And like our neighbor across the street from like one of them across the street, like he came home with this thing and his the thing to blow it. Oh my gosh, air compressor! Holy smokes! And
You don't say.
weird, need those. Came home with that, and it was like 8 inches, 9 inches of snow on the ground. It was comical. Um,
Too
did not look
late.
fun. I've done that
No.
once. It's not fun. So make sure to get those blown out. If you're listening to this and like you're in Andrew and my neck of the woods, like you're late to the ball game for sure. Um, but you're going to want to get that before like the super super cold temperatures get there, right? You certainly want to do that. Remove all of the hoses. I forgot to do this a couple years ago where like you got to remove the hoses. Water will freeze in there, snow will get up in there, and melt and freeze and the whole shebang. Drain all of those and just disconnect everything, and then keep that spigot open after it's turned off, at least a little bit to prevent anything from happening there. And then if you do things like Andrew, you and I were going back and forth on this a couple of years ago. Like you did hose bibs. I've never heard of it before. Like I guess on some of maybe like the older built houses or something like that. Like hose bibs are a thing, and
You're right.
some call it a scam. I have no idea. I've personally never done those. You
You're talking
have.
about the covers over them,
Yeah,
right?
the cover
Yeah.
things.
I had never done them in my life, and I happened to be walking through a big box store and saw these foam things for like $2 or $3, whatever it was. And I was like, I got two faucets, I got two hose bibs outside my house. Like, whatever. I've been a homeowner for 2 years. I've never done it, but I don't want this year to be the regrettable year. So I'm just gonna spend $5 and cover these things. And I
Why not?
guarantee you it didn't do anything. I think if anything, it helps maybe prevent like snow. Like if you have snow build up like high up against the side of your house, maybe keeps it off those.
Mm,
Um, Maybe it helps prevent them from freezing. But like most faucets outside of a house, they are built in a way that they will not freeze. That's just how they're designed.
right.
So it's not too much of a concern. But side note, you were talking about the hoses and stuff. Have you ever been like midwinter and you get like a thaw and you're like, "Ooh, I'm finally gonna go take care of those hoses," and try to wind those things up?
Oh, that's hard.
It's impossible. They're so stiff. It is not enjoyable.
I actually have a
It's
funny
comical.
story. It's yeah, and of course it's just like deal with that down the road. Like deal with that problem down the road, kick the can down the road. It's like
Yeah,
just a classic laziness story.
yeah.
So like last winter, we had like a random thaw in December. And like if I'm in Minnesota, so like we had the super cold temperatures early, and then we had like a warm front, and then it got cold again. So during that warm front, everything melted. Our we never really had that like freeze or frost layer like established last year. It was just kind of like this wishy-washy start to the winter. But our sump pump was going crazy, like just constantly running one day. And
Hmm.
I've never heard the sound in my house. It was like a very quiet hum, like, Like
Right.
it's usually really, really loud. And I go downstairs and I finally just figure out that it's the sump pump. I'm like, this thing's constantly running. Like it's constantly full. So I go outside, throw my boots on. There's 2 or 3 feet of snow out there. I'm trekking through there. And the thing is just constantly running. I can just hear something getting blocked. And I pull the hose, like the sump pump connector hose that I had forgotten to take that off for the winter and didn't realize it until right the second. And I rip it off, and I'm standing right in front of it like a complete idiot. And an ice block comes shooting out and misses my left testicle by, I shit you not, 4 centimeters. I was almost Lance Armstrong right there. And I was like, oh my gosh. And all of a sudden, it was like gallons of water just gushing out like a fire,
Oh,
like
wow.
emptying out the fire hydrant. It was,
It's a good thing you figured
dude,
that out.
holy smoke. So don't make that mistake either. Um, take your sump pump hose out if you got like those cheap black plastic ones that like line out to the street or a drain tile or something like that. Ugh.
So I guess just
You just get fed up.
be mindful of anything with water that can freeze. Uh,
Or move to Florida.
yeah. Or if you go to Florida, make sure you take care of your stuff before you fly south, huh?
Yeah, that too. That too.
Jeez.
But you mentioned snow mold earlier.
Yeah.
There's some things we should be mindful of. It's not as bad, I think, as people make it out to be, but there are some things that we should consider.
Yeah. Snow mold is, if you don't know what that is, it's basically like a lawn disease fungus that you get in the middle of winter because of snow covering. Usually it um, presents itself when you get a decent amount of snow covering and the ground underneath it has not had a chance to completely freeze. Um, and I learned a lot about that mostly because I get snow mold almost every year, only in my front lawn. And I had the hardest time figuring out why. And I think I figured out why. It's because I have a septic system in
Oh,
my
your
entire,
poo.
yeah. And all my warm poo is heating my entire front yard because it's like my whole front yard is like a drain field. So all the water that like comes out of the septic tank goes down towards the road. And I just year after year, I would only have snow mold in my front lawn. I couldn't figure it out. I think that's why. I think the ground just never freezes because of my
Yeah.
warm poo. My poo water keeps the lawn too warm. So that is one of the reasons why snow mold can form. It's because of poo, I guess you could say. But it's
Warmer ground.
in order to prevent getting snow mold other than not having a septic tank, good cultural practices like proper mowing, like we touched on, keeping the grass blades from really laying down too far. um, if you have snowbanks, I think a lot of people are guilty of this, where they shovel or they snow blow and it all just goes into like the same 10-foot little strip right on the side of their
Yep.
driveway, right? And sometimes you can't avoid it. It's understandable. But those areas with excess like snowbanks and snow piles that last longer into like the springtime when the ground underneath it finally maybe isn't frozen, that is prime spots to get snow mold. So it's same thing goes with your sidewalks if you have those plowed by like the city. So not everybody likes to be that guy that's out in their front lawn on a sunny day where everything's melting and you're trying to help the process go faster by dispersing your snowbanks with a shovel. I'm that guy just because I'm itching to do something out in the lawn mostly by that point, and I don't really. My neighbors already know I'm crazy, as most of you probably realize from my social media
Confirmed.
channels, and you've met me in person multiple times. Um, so along with that, you want to just not overdo your nitrogen going into the fall as well. That's another thing that can help you out. Um, and now talk about preventative stuff. Something that I'm going to actually be doing this year with hopefully having success, since I have constant issues in my front yard, is I'm going to be using fungicide. And there's a couple of different active ingredients that you can go about using for successful control of snow mold. And they are propiconazole and oxystrobin. And I'm going to be using propiconazole just mostly because I have that on hand. And the idea here is to basically go out and apply, which I'll be spraying with the backpack. It'll be mighty cold mixing that batch of fungicide. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably going to be doing it around Thanksgiving. You want to do it before you have snow covering on the ground. That's going to like be there to stay. And ideally before like the ground is frozen too. So we tell you guys, like once the grass stops growing, you're done mowing, don't apply fertilizer. But this is the one case where it's actually safe to apply something, and that's fungicides. Um, so I'm going to be trying my hand at that this year. So we shall see what happens. Um,
Well,
but
you'll
a lot,
you'll you'll have some good success with that, I think. I mean, depending on the severity of your winter and what you
right,
get thrown at you. And
right.
I was gonna actually bring this up while you're talking was we have an entire episode that like
Oh,
we had Aaron from New Farm in, and he like
yeah.
is a human encyclopedia on
I
this
learned so
stuff.
much from that episode just myself. It was awesome.
It's crazy. So go back and listen to that for some preventative tips on this topic specifically. It's at the very end of the
Right.
episode, and then
Hmm.
he's got obviously all the other fungus
Yeah, that's right. I talked about the poo
diseases.
water with him. I forgot.
Oh yeah, yeah. Poo water's
We've
coming
mentioned the poo
back.
water before.
It's coming back. It's a
Hmm.
popular topic, but yeah, keep going if you had anything.
Uh, no, the only thing I was going to mention was there's been some studies, out there that has actually talked about excessive amounts of potassium being applied in the fall that
Mm-hmm.
actually contributes to snow mold. So, a lot of winterizer fertilizers that you guys are going to be using are kind of higher in potassium, and those are probably fine. But like, you might also hear that potassium's good going into winter and coming out in the spring. It's good, it's good protection for your grass. Well, everything's good in moderation, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
like in healthcare and eating, everything's good in moderation, but you can overdo it. And so there's actually some studies out there that have proven that too much K or too much potassium, which is that third number on that fertilizer bag, that you can actually overdo it. So if you have a deficiency, like from a soil test in potassium, apply those over the course of the entire year. Don't look at your calendar and go, "Ooh, I'm due for 8 pounds of potassium. I'm gonna throw
Oh
her a day." Like, no, it's you're gonna be fine. Just continue that regimen next year, and just use a normal amount of potassium for fall. So just wanted to throw
yeah,
that little tidbit in there.
and that's an interesting one too because I there's been more and more talk about that. I feel like coming into our space, and it appears to be more and more relevant.
Right.
Like you said, every lawn's different, every soil is different, and every lawn needs different things. But um, it's the worst snow mold that I had. I
You dumped it.
experimented with it, and it was dumped on. Like it's just like not saying that that's going to be the end all be all, but like it is interesting to kind of see those things coincide with each other for sure.
Right.
But
So you firsthand got to witness that. So
last year's was bad. Like I think it was just it was like all of the stars aligning. Um,
right.
Last year's
And
snow mold was something else.
And just so everybody knows, snow mold is one of those things where like your grass will most likely bounce back.
Hundred
Um,
percent, it will.
it's there are some times where it will actually kill spots. That's usually like I think that's the pink snow mold. So there are two different kinds, but gray is very common for most of us. So if you see like those like white little patchy areas of like matted grass coming out of winter, that's probably snow mold to some extent. So that just goes back to like once the grass is dried out a little bit, hitting it with a rake in the
Yeah,
springtime, getting some airflow down in there, and it should clear up for the most part. And once you start hitting it with some nutrients and getting it growing, it'll probably be happy. I was really impressed with how your backyard bounced back. Saw the pictures and videos that you were
man.
sending, and I was like, man, he might need to do some seeding.
Yeah.
But
And if you want to go into what Andrew's talking about, like I said, this past winter in 2022, 2023 was the worst my yard has ever been with snowball. And that was across the board. Golf courses got hit hard if they didn't up like their roughs. The
right,
longer turfs got hit hard. And just all over the place. We didn't have a frost layer. And I'm pretty sure that is what accounted for a lot of that. But each week I was like, I'm going to try something. I'm going to see week by week, see how this thing bounces back. And I put like the original picture up on the top, and then the original picture, like where it's at now,
Mm-hmm.
uh, at the bottom, and it bounced back really, really well. Uh,
Right.
it's you got to
Patience and
rake it.
trust
You
the
got to
process.
exactly, yeah, yeah. Rule number one is don't panic, and rule number two is refer to rule number one in the spring.
I think we all panic to some extent. Let's be honest, but
Exactly,
that's
but
okay.
so it gets cold out when winter strikes, and there's a lot of equipment in our lawns that we've been using all summer long. What are some of the things that we should be doing with those?
Yeah, we kind of touched on what to do with the houses and the irrigation, right? But we use a lot of equipment that needs to be tucked away for winter as well. The nice thing about using battery powered stuff is there really isn't much to do with those. We'll touch on the batteries here in a moment, but let's stick with the gas powered stuff, like your lawnmowers, for example. Um, there's You can't just throw those in your shed and say see in 4 months to those things. They're not going to start up very well for you. So um, some things to consider doing is changing your oil, which you should be doing probably at least once a season. Some people like to do that at the beginning of the next season or the end of the current season. I personally like to do it at the end of the current season just because, like, you come out of winter, you don't want to go out there and change your oil first thing. You want to get out there on the mower, get to work. So I like to have my mower ready to go. So as soon as I need to get out there, I can certainly do that. So changing your oil, um, and then you never want to put your lawnmower away without either A, running the gas out of it, or putting a fuel stabilizer into it, like Stable, for example, is a very popular brand.
Mm-hmm.
And you just follow the directions on there. It tells you how much to put in per gallon of fuel. I like to fill my gas tank pretty much all the way up. And if you look at the specs of your lawnmower, which you can probably find online, if you don't know the size of your gas tank, you can look up all that information, figure out how much Stable to apply. Um, and then you usually want to fire up that mower for a couple minutes and get the gas with the Stable in it, like into the actual engine itself and all the parts, so that it doesn't have the gas without it into all those little areas. Um, if you have like a ride-on lawnmower or a zero turn, you can check the PSI of your tires. You don't want to be coming out of winter into spring and having a tire look like the football of Tom Brady. You know what I'm saying? Like
Deflate
you
gate.
always check your PSI before you get on your lawnmowers for the season. But if you put them away, inflated properly, they'll probably be fine when you are ready to use it in the spring.
Have you
Um,
ever had a flat tire in a mower?
no, not yet. Knock on
I
wood.
I had my first flat tire. Well, I shouldn't say first. I've heard my first flat tire on the
A lawnmower.
current mower that I have.
Oh, I'm
Hasn't happened in
sorry.
a long time, and I was like, that looks pretty uneven. What's going on? I checked down, and it's a flat tire. It's like, damn, what did I run over?
Huh.
But
What kind of
hey,
property is you mowing? Oh,
seriously, there's some sketchy ones, but man, man.
something else that you could consider doing, besides making sure you're not running on the freaking rims of your tires, is scrape the deck of your mower, which is something you should be doing regularly throughout the season. But you definitely don't want to put that thing away for the winter with a ton of buildup on it with like wet grass and all that kind of stuff. It's just you're asking for rust and damage, and it's just gonna be
Mm-hmm.
that much harder to remove in spring when you finally like consider doing it. Wipe down your mower, clean it. You know, take care of your equipment, and your equipment will take care of you, right? You spend a lot of time and money on these kind of things, so if you can give them a little love, they'll show that love back. And something that I like to do is I like to remove my mower blades before I put it away for the season. And I just kind of set those blades usually on my workbench or something, because in the middle of winter, if it's like a warm day and it's comfortable out in the garage, I don't know. I like to go out there and sharpen the mower
You
blades
get
because,
you get the itch.
yeah, you get the itch. It just kind of feels like, hey, I'm doing something productive. Like it's just, I'm back into it, but you're not. It just, I don't know. It makes you
The
feel
kids are
better about
going
things.
absolutely batshit crazy,
Right.
and you need
And
to
you're just like,
escape.
honey, like they can't wait any longer. I need to sharpen the blades. She's just like, what? And like, it's going to take at least an hour and a couple drinks. So
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I hope you understand. So, I
Seven and
mean,
a
you
half
can,
minute project. You're out there for 2 hours.
right.
Takes
I mean,
time.
You can certainly just remove your blades and sharpen them now, and put them away, or wait and take them off and sharpen before the season. But I don't know. That's just kind of been my process, and I think it's kind of comforting for me knowing, hey, I'm going to be okay. We're going to get through this winter. Better things around the horizon.
So there's
So,
always light at the end of the tunnel, right?
that's
Always
what
light
they
at the end of the
say, right?
tunnel.
Sometimes it's hard to believe. Trust the process.
I
Uh,
feel like so this is like going into like the coolest part of the year, right? At least like this is like our family's like best part of the year, I think, because it's like you just
mhm.
had a really good lawn season. That's beside the point. As a family man,
School's back in session, football.
school, football, Halloween, so Halloween,
Right.
Thanksgiving, and whatever you celebrate in the month of December and January. So for us, that's Christmas. I want to include everybody, but like
Sure.
for us, that's Christmas, and like Christmas for us starts like if I had the choice, our Christmas tree would be up before Halloween. I'm a
Oh,
Christmas
wow.
guy. Christmas music would be blaring. Vince would say otherwise, but
Yeah.
like I feel like, but after Christmas and New Year's, it's like seasonal depression for 95 days for us.
Yeah, no, I get
Just
that. Like, there's a lot to look forward to in the next couple of months leading up to Christmas and New Year's. And once that's done, it's kind of like, okay, well, now what is there?
right. So the light is
Nothing.
there. You just got to have to wait a long time
Right.
for me.
It's funny you mentioned Christmas music. We were cleaning the house today, and my daughter was like, "Mom, can we listen to Christmas music?" And my wife goes, "Nope, not, at least not till after Thanksgiving or until after Halloween." And I was just like, "Oh man, I'm kind of
Hell
feel
yes, you
I'm
can.
I'm kind of feeling it actually. I was get some Mariah Carey Christmas going. I'm cool with that." But um,
You were
yeah, it
jamming.
did no, we didn't, but yeah, we'll be soon enough. But let's get back to the equipment stuff real quick. I want to touch on batteries. Like battery powered equipment's awesome because there really isn't a whole lot to do with winterizing them and getting them ready.
Yeah.
Basically, take the batteries out of your equipment or off the shelves wherever you're storing them outside in your garage or shed, and bring them inside for winter. I bring mine downstairs to a little storage area in the basement where nobody knows they are even there. And it's just it's good to store batteries at more of a room temperature than compared to really really cold, because it's just going to help the longevity, the battery life of those batteries. And if you guys are running battery equipment, you probably know that when you pay for battery equipment, you are paying a lot for those batteries. So
Mm-hmm.
if you can get an extra year out of them, you will be very very happy. um, I did a little bit of research on this last year, and in some of the batteries companies uh, recommend like doing a full charge before storing them. Some of them say it doesn't matter. Some of them say to charge to like 50% before storing them. Um, every battery powered piece of equipment should come with a pamphlet just about the batteries, or it will be in the user manual somewhere. You can probably find it on the manufacturer's website. If you really want to dig into it and find out what the proper care is for your specific battery, do some digging on the website and find out what that may be. So, yeah, that's all I got on that.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think from it's all good stuff. Earlier in the episode, you mentioned spraying around a certain time. There's like a window. Another sneaky thing that we've talked about in like previous episodes is actually taking advantage of a small window
Mm-hmm.
before winter strikes to actually seed your lawn. For those of you who have like wanted to do an overseeding project, wanted to seed your lawn, fill in bare spots or anything like that, this is a really good time to actually do that. It's called dormant seeding, and the you have to kind of have a little bit of all of the stars aligning, and kind of have to, you know, clean up your leaves. All the prep work kind of has to be done, and all of that stuff in terms of like dethatching and aeration, and kind of making sure that the seed can meet that soil. But dormant seeding is the third like best area to kind of go do it. And you beat. There's a lot of advantages. There's some disadvantages, which we'll get to. There's a lot of advantages with dormant seeding because it's sneaky. The idea and the concept is you lay your seed down very similar to an overseeding project. In the small window where soil temperatures are below the germination period, which is anywhere below 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit, and not frozen. So the soil's not frozen, but not yet warm enough to germinate. So you've got a little bit of a window. That sweet spot's like 40-degree soil temperatures, and if it's right before a big snowfall, even better.
Mm.
Like that's where you want to be. That
Mm-mm.
would be all of the stars aligning. And the concept of this and the theory is your seed will get into the soil and it will lie dormant over the winter months, and it will use the snowpack snow melt upon spring, all the spring melting of that, to stay moist and beat out prime real estate versus things like weeds and all of the other things that will take over your normal bare spots that are just eyesores and all of the other deals, and take advantage of growing days at the earliest temperature rising that it possibly can in the springtime, usually before you could even get out into the lawn because it's so soggy. So all the prep work is done in the fall. You can't even get out to the lawn yet to go do the prep work and dethatch, aerate, go do all of the thing, prep the seed bed layer. It's already taken care of in the fall. The germination percentage, I talked about, there's some cons to it. The germination percentage of dormant seeding is probably going to be a lot lower. So if it's like an 85, 95% or 90% on the bag, yeah, it's going to be lower than that, right? There's a risk for sure. There's also the unpredictability of winter, and all of the things surrounding it that you just can't predict with weather, the uncontrollables that Mother Nature is, um, and so on and so forth. But it is a sneaky time to fill in bare spots. I wouldn't recommend going and doing it, if you have bare soil or anything like that. But find the best grass seed that's going to be best for you, your local environment. We've got our guide that's going to be out there to kind of help support with that. If you need some advice, call the folks at Twin City Seed, our friends over there. They'll be happy to help you out and direct you in the right direction in terms of what seed is going to be best for you in your local environment. But find that seed. Act quick. If you happen to miss out or you just found out about overseeding a little bit late or whatever it would be, it's a good time to kind of get that done, and kind of go from there. Uh, Obviously, the same principles would apply for like a spring overseed. You can't use like pre-emergence or anything of that nature because it would be germination in the spring. But reach out if you've got any questions on any of that stuff, and we can kind of point you in the right direction. But
You know,
sneaky, sneaky, sneaky.
yeah,
Fun
I've
time.
never tried that before, but it's really tempting if you just have a little bit of grass seed sitting around the garage and you have a couple small bare spots that you're like, I'll touch them up in the spring. Just, I don't know. I might try my hand at a dormant seeding. Maybe you guys want to do that too. I mean, you don't
There's
know if you can have success until you try it, right? And that's part of DIY lawn care in general, is just experimenting and learning from your failures and moving on. So,
no doubt. And there's different things that you can do for better success rates, like germination blankets, different applications, all of those different things. The guys over at University of Minnesota Turf Program just did a pretty good extensive research study on this, and it's worth checking out. Go to umn.edu, their turf grass program, and check out their work that they've done, to kind of give you chances at best success there. But we're preaching a lot of that same stuff that they found out as well. So, winterization. Who knew that there could be so much to talk about? It's crazy.
did not
It's
think it would be
crazy.
this long of an epi, but here we are.
Here we are. So
Here we
hopefully
are.
you guys are nice and toasty with your hot apple cider and cocoa and Bailey's and whatever in there.
Pumpkin
Uh,
spice.
Pumpkin spice, tucking it in, and your flannels. But on behalf of all of the cast here, I guess just Andrew and myself, and then Vince off with his family, we appreciate you guys tuning in to another great episode. Good luck with your winterization. Good luck with closing down the lawn season. We are not stopping. We will continue throughout the entire off season, so you can look forward to next year. And we're going to have some cool guests and some cool things planned during the off season here. So be sure to check out what we have coming up next. Have a great day, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.
See you guys.